how I take people into the legacy of understanding where they are is really taking them through my financial star process, my art time, understanding the tools, information, material, and equipment. And then I go into form and formula, understanding their family, their occupation, their recreation, and then their money. But money's just a tool. And that's really where I start delving into it.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Flywheel Effect. We're sponsored by Vital. Vital really does great work helping businesses optimize their operations, learn how to work on your business, and really find your personal success. So anyway, I'm
and
Brent
if you're
Sonnek.
just joining us today, part of the fun is that Brent likes to have no script for his life, pretty much. And that includes no script for the opening of what will end up being, I don't know, our 50th podcast or whatever the number this is.
That's all
And
right.
they've been, every single one has been different.
Yeah.
And that part of the fun of it is that they are different. And at first, I think it annoyed Matt. Now he just enjoys it. So it's good. How you doing, Matt?
Good. I'm
He's a
doing well.
wonderful ride.
That's right. Well, I mean, you know, that's part of the beauty of our partnership is we help each other dig in a little deeper into who we are. So yeah, it's been fun.
It's good. So things going well, Matt?
Yeah, really well. Looking forward to hanging with my daughter this weekend. We're doing a little car show Saturday morning and then going to see Supercross live in Anaheim. Yeah, I haven't seen a Supercross live in at least 10 years. And she's like, right now, she's all about motorsports. So I'm going to...
In the baseball stadium?
in Anaheim Angel Stadium. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's the big guys.
I went to that I went to that in Giant Stadium at the time when I was like 14. It was pretty awesome. You get some crashes. They had the race, the track with the jumps, but then they did the big jumps in the middle, and those are crazy.
Yeah. I was telling Kira about the crashes. I said it's different because I didn't race Supercross at that level, but I used to ride motocross, and so I'm very familiar with how much pain they're in when they crash. And so I told her, like pretty much every other motorsport that we watch, they're in a cage. And, you know, so the car takes the brunt of it. And of course, there are serious injuries from time to time, but the safety has gotten so good in motorsports, except Supercross. I mean, it's still, when they crash, their body takes the brunt of it. And there's safety gear improvements over the years, but man, those are not crashes that you want to see in motorsports.
I was talking to one guy once who did it, and he was talking about all his broken bones. He had broken his pelvis, his collarbone, his hip, his arm. And I'm like, how the hell are you still doing this? It's like, I love it.
They love it. Yeah. So that's all they can imagine doing. So yeah, it'll be a good time. It's funny what just popped into my head a couple of weeks ago. I took her to the Peterson Automotive Museum in LA, and they had an exhibit with all of the old arcade games. You would have loved this, Brent. All of the old racing arcade games. Like, do you remember Cruising USA, the old NASCAR ones? They had all of them. My favorite, they had pole position. My favorite was, do you remember the Ivan Ironman Stewart where you had the 3 different colored steering wheels and you were racing the stadium trucks?
Oh, yeah.
That was my favorite, and they had that there. I just kept playing it over and over again. And Kira's like, what is the deal, Dad? Like, immediately brought myself back down to like 7-year-old Matt playing that game, and it was a fun one.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have a called Retrocade here too that I pop into every now and then. I like Dig Dug. It's my favorite game. So a little different. Well, we have a great guest here today. We have Ron Beckner. How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me, Brent.
So Ron is a financial planner. That sounds pretty boring compared to who we normally have this podcast, but Ron's got some great experience.
It's funny. I had a different take. Like, as soon as I read his bio, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm excited to have him on here because, of course, I'm a financial nerd, right? And so yeah, we're gonna do a lot of different things today.
Well, I mean, you hear financial advisor and you think, oh yeah, that's some schlep talking about money or whatever. But it is the background, you guys. It really is. It's my background that makes me who I am, and it makes me different in this field. Even though I might have the title financial advisor, I'm still just an old dumb pipe fitter and retired military. So, I'm a salty guy.
What service were you in?
I actually did 4 years active Navy, and I was a hull technician, and I was on the USS Bellewood. So I'd been on a couple of Western Pacific cruises right out of San Diego. So I saw half the world, twice before I was freaking 20 or 19 years old.
You joined out of high school. You joined the Navy.
Yep. Yep.
Enlisted sailor.
Yeah.
And because you have the third generation pipe fitter, your family's been working with metal forever.
That's
so
right.
They just threw you right on that ship, and you did your minimum 4 years. And you're like, I'm out of here.
Yep. And then I joined the Coast Guard, and I did 4 years in the Coast Guard.
What'd you do? What drove that?
I really enjoyed the military as discipline. So, I grew up in a household of pipe fitter, right? I mean, there was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of, dope smoking and other things going on. And my dad gave me enough rope where I could hang myself more than once. And I thought, maybe I could use a little discipline. And it's kind of funny. My grandfather was in the Navy, and I had a couple uncles in the Navy. And even when I was a kid, we used to play guns around the house, me and my buddies. And my one buddy was always a freaking Air Force guy. And then his brother was always an Army guy, but I was always the Navy guy. And it was just weird. And sure enough, I got into a situation. I was like, you know what? I'm just joining the Navy. I'm doing it. And it happened so fast. Right. It's a great story, but here's how it happened. So got into trouble with a little bit of a girl because I took my mom's car and took her home, and I ended up tearing the muffler system off my mom's car. So the next morning, my mom wakes up and I say, hey, listen, here's what I did. And she's like, oh my God, you stole my car. And we're living in a little place called Coolidge, Kansas. So she's like, you'll never use my car again, and on and on. And I'm like, okay, that's it. Take me to the recruiter. So she takes me to the recruiter. I sign everything up. He's like, okay, well, in a week, you're going to go to MEPS. So that's in Denver. So I go up there. I spend the night with my dad. The next morning, I go back into the MEPS, and the guy's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, my grandfather and my dad are pipe fitters. I saw this hull tech. I saw the welding and pipe fitting and stuff. I think that's what I want to do. He's like, oh, well, we could probably get you out this week or next week. So I kind of start praying, yeah, man, let's get out this week or next week. And he goes, clicking on his computer. I said, what? He goes, how'd you like to leave today? I said, today? He said, yeah. I said, what do I need? He said, the clothes on your back. I said, let's go.
Wow.
Nice.
I walked out. My mom's sitting in the waiting room with my stepdad, and I've got this big shit-eating grin on my face. And my mom's like, what? My stepdad goes, you leave today. I said, I leave today. You guys head on back to Kansas. I'm heading out. And they're like, oh, my God. Yeah, that was July 1st, 1983. And that night I was in Chicago, flew into Chicago, was in Great Lakes, and that's where it all began. And then I went into the Coast Guard, like I said, Brent. And, we were getting ready to have a baby, me and my first wife. And I thought, maybe the Coast Guard might be a good deal, because my last year in the Navy, out of 365 days, I was actually on shore and at home for 62 of them. So I was at sea the rest of the time. But I thought, the Coast Guard, that's got to be a little better. And ended up on a ship and hurt my knee out of Astoria, Oregon. It was a buoy tender. So then I went to the air station and ended up going and working the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. And I was a damage controlman there. But then when I got out of the Coast Guard, then I joined the Naval Reserve and went into the pipe fitter apprenticeship. So then I worked 2 jobs for 16 years, and now I'm retired military. I'm collecting my pension, and next year I start collecting my pipe fitter pension.
So do you have 3 pensions? Do you have a Navy, Coast Guard, and pipe fitter pension?
Yeah, well, the Navy and the Coast Guard, that is active military, plus my reserve time gave me 24 years total service.
Great.
So, yeah, it's a hell of a life that I'm living, and I love it. My wife, now I'm going into my 14th year of being a financial advisor. I did write a book called A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American. And, I'm just down to earth on what we do. I had to teach myself how money is just a tool. The process that I came up with is called a financial star process. There's 5 points on the star. But the very first point my dad taught me. So on my very first foreman job, my dad says, listen, kid, if you give these guys time, they can build the world for you. But time is an acronym, stands for tools, information, material, and equipment. If they're missing any one of those elements, they ain't going to get the job done because you can't. And I really took that to heart, and I took it even into this trade, and I added an R because time is real, gentlemen. That clock only goes one way. And it seems the older we get, the faster it goes.
For sure. So when did you go to college then through this process?
So I actually went to college at night. I went to the University of Phoenix. So it's kind of funny because as I was working with the pipe fitter, and once I met my wife, she's pretty grounded, you know, and I'm going into my third marriage. So now she's like, hey, listen, she goes, this pipe fitter gig that you're doing and you're traveling around the country. She goes, that's not going to be a relationship I'm going to buy into. She goes, I need a man who's going to be home at night and, you know, somebody who's going to be consistent. And that's really what I'm looking for is a good homebody, you know, somebody that's going to give me that kind of stability. And so I'd already been applying for government jobs, and I ended up getting a pipe fitter position offer from the Department of the Navy. So I'm living in Colorado, and her and we're together, and I get this offer, and I come home one day and I say, hey, guess what, man? I just got this government job offer to be a pipe fitter for the government, and I'll be able to be home every night. She's like, really? And I said, yeah. She's like, oh my gosh, that's great. And I said, but there is a catch. She goes, what's that? I said, it's in Hawaii. And she's like, what? No. And she kind of freaked out. Anyway, I invited her to go with me, and we lived over there for a couple of years, and I worked for the government. But I went to college at night, and I was already going to college at night to get my business management degree. Because really what I wanted to do is kind of work in the union and see if I could become a business agent and business manager and really be an educated pipe fitter leader in that realm. And it didn't turn out that way, obviously.
But you and Matt had that in common. Matt also did University of Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really? You know what? What's funny, I feel like my whole life I've always been like a phoenix, Matt. Really. Because, you know, whether it be going out of relationships or I'm always coming out bigger, badder, better. It's pretty amazing how life has done that. And I always consider it was kind of funny, even once I graduated in Hawaii, you know, and got the offer, you know, to join a financial firm. It was pretty cool because, again, I just felt myself emerging from, you know, the blue collar existence that I'd been involved with all my life. And it's not that I feel like I'm out of the blue collar. I don't work in the blue collar world, but I still love working with blue collar people because I can relate to them, man. You know, I'm in Colorado, so I know what it's like to get up at dark 30 and have to be on the job. And if you're using the toilet, you're in the little blue room and everything in there's frozen. You know, it's just, that's when you're using the toilet. That's where you are in the satellite.
So I think it's really interesting that you moved from that background into being a financial advisor, basically because your wife told you to do it.
Well, I wasn't married to her at the time when I started making the transition to it.
But I mean, but you must have had a connection to money and managing it before that, or no? It was just something.
Well, I did have a little stint where I worked at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter for about 3 months, and you know, nothing ever came of it because it was kind of funny. The testing and everything that you got to take to get into this. I mean, I really felt like that was an incredible thing. There was a couple times literally when I was doing the testing now for the position that I'm in, I was on my knees in tears looking up saying, are you sure this is what I'm supposed to be doing? I'm a pretty good pipe fitter. I've done pretty good there, you know? And what ended up happening at Morgan Stanley is like, I'm working for them. I'm answering phones. I'm working in the mailroom. I'm seeing these guys doing stuff, but nobody was ever training me. And then all of a sudden they come up to me one day and say, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to test for the Series 7 in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, well, what's that? And they're like, oh, well, it's a test you got to pass to really, you know, move on in the company and start becoming a broker. Oh, well, is there something I should be studying? Oh, yeah, well, here's a CD disc, start looking at that. Well, I'm still working and there was zero training. Of course, I blew the test. And then after that, they're like, oh, well, we'd sure like to keep you on. We know we like who you are. And I said, well, here's what I make as a pipe fitter. I'm making $20 an hour. Are you going to pay me $20? Well, no, you're answering phones and working in a mailroom. We're not going to pay you that. I said, well, there's two can'ts here. You can't pay me that. I can't stay because I had kids and, this is what I was looking at. So that was my little taste of it. But I've always been interested, Brent. So it's a great question. I've always been interested in trying to figure out how a working class guy like me could make more money than was going to be available. And I think that's where, I even looked at becoming a contractor. Me and my dad started our own concrete resurfacing business for a little bit there. And, but I'm always been thinking, I've always been one of those guys. I wonder if I can. I'm always thinking, can I be better? Can I be better? Can I be better? And, once I met my wife, I was going through a divorce. And that's when I started going to college at night to get my business management degree. Because I was thinking, man, I can just hit new levels if I can get this degree. And, that's kind of what took me into this, bro.
That's good. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, great story, Ron. Thank you. So shifting gears a little bit into kind of our audience, right? Our audience are generally they're contractors, tradespeople, in the home services industry. So you have some knowledge and experience of, what, for some reason, when I hear blue collar, it just doesn't land for me. It feels like it's been used derogatorily in the past, and that's probably just a me thing. I don't know, but I like how you use working class. I think that's great. You have this connection to the working class. That's your history. That's your ancestry and your personal history. So when we think about our audience, most of them are working really hard. And some of them are doing really, really well financially. Others may not be. I think all of them, I would guess, or most of them, have some vision for being able to create legacy wealth.
Yes.
And so maybe you can identify from the folks that you've worked with who might be similar to our audience, what are the different ways that you've seen, and let's start really broad and we can get deeper if we want, but what are the different ways you've seen them create legacy wealth as working class entrepreneurs?
Well, I'm really glad you even said the word legacy, right? Because in my financial star process, the fifth point is legacy. Mm-hmm. And it's getting into, legal documents and stuff like that. But it's really, what are we teaching our children? And legacy to me, and we can even go back to what you just said, my background as a working class American is in the pipe fitting and piping industry. And that is my legacy going backwards. But going forwards, how I take people into the legacy of understanding where they are is really taking them through my financial star process, my R time, understanding the tools, information, material, and equipment. And then I go into form and formula, understanding their family, their occupation, their recreation, and then their money. But money's just a tool. And that's really where I start delving into it.
I love that you're going to teach us about your process. I would first love to hear is, what are the different examples that you've seen of how people have created legacy wealth? So, because I want to pull people into this idea of what's possible before we pull them into the idea of how to do it, right? So let's talk about what's possible for somebody who might be listening right now and they're like, I'm working my ass off. Maybe I'm in my mid-30s, mid-40s. I want to create legacy wealth. What are the different pathways that people can create legacy wealth? So, for example, what comes to my mind is they could build something and sell it, right? They could continue to operate their business and try to take as much out of it as possible every year and invest it in other ways. Like, what are some different ways that you've actually helped people do that and create legacy wealth? Not the how, but the what.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of different ways that people have come to me. I mean, we're going into a transition where baby boomers are dying, you guys, and wealth is transitioning, right? So people are going to inherit some money. So there's going to be one way to get it. You're exactly right. You can build something, you can create something, whether it be a business or a product, and you can literally get wealth in that direction as well. I mean, you can buy real estate, and I've seen people get real estate or even become, landlords where they're buying real estate, they're leveraging that real estate so they can buy more, and that's creating wealth. So I've worked with everybody across the board, you guys. One of the biggest things that, and I know you guys work with a lot of contractors, and even before they were a contractor, maybe they had a job where there was a 401k and they put money into that. But a lot of people don't understand, well, if they're no longer there, how do they get a hold of that money?
Which
Go
percentage
ahead.
of your clients are tradespeople?
A lot of my clients are tradespeople.
So and at what point do they come to you? Like what's their trigger to seek your help?
That's a good question. A lot of times it's hearing from somebody else. Hey, have you talked to Ron? Remember Ron? You mean Beckner, the guy that was running the job out in Utah?
So that's when that's when I think here's my question. So at that point, they're talking to somebody else about something, right?
Yeah.
What is their life trigger that they decide I got to get some help with my money?
Well, if it's a referral, it's because of what I've done for these other people.
No, that's why they go for you.
Yeah.
I'm talking about why they go to anybody.
They realize that they can do better for themselves with some guidance.
Because I'm thinking about tradespeople and where they are in their lives, and often they actually make good money. They spend a lot of money, spend a lot of it. I think you kind of mentioned that with your history as well. And then the question is, what is that trigger of whether it's fear or opportunity that causes them to say, shit, I got to put a plan in place and I don't know how to do it? Because I know, give you an example.
It's a great question.
I'll give you an example. I know a lot of them don't have wills and they freak out about it. You're kind of fall into that same bucket of it's what's going to happen tomorrow, but there's a reason why they think that. And I'm trying to figure out what that is.
I think it's human nature. Sometimes it's mortality, Brent, right? I mean, we all know, and this goes back to our time, right? Time is real. And at some point in our lives, we have a realization where it hits us. Holy shit, I'm mortal. There is an end date. I have an expiration date. I don't know when it is, but there's a time in life where you do have that realization. And maybe it's once the kids leave the house and your life changes and now you're an empty nester. Maybe it's after a divorce. Maybe it's after the loss of a job or even the loss of a family member that leaves you that money. I mean, these are the type of people, once again, that I deal with. And the oh shit moment sometimes is when people are getting ready to retire and they haven't really considered anything because they've been so busy living their lives and working and doing what we do and making money and spending it and realizing, wait a minute, I'm coming to the end of this road. Now what am I going to do? And how do I do this without going to a job every day?
I think this is actually great because what you just pointed out to me is that they're coming to you late in their life for the most part, whether you saw a divorce, death, close to retirement, whatever. So they started working in the trades sometime between the ages of 18 and 25.
Yep.
And basically did nothing through the age of 45 to 50 at least. And now they're trying to catch up.
Exactly.
Maybe put away for retirement. How do you get them sooner?
And that's a great question. A lot of times it takes a mentorship almost. Somebody who's already been down the road that you have a good relationship with that sits there and basically takes you under the wing and says, look, kid, this is what you better start doing. And I'm telling you this because, that's why a lot of people even get in the trades young is because they're literally following a friend or a family member's example because, oh man, that's good money. But what they're, and a lot of times what they don't understand is I like to teach this. What's the 4 tax quadrants and what's the 3 buckets of money that we got to deal with? And that's understanding that as an employee, you're going to get taxed at the highest rate, especially if you're taking money out of your tax deferred bucket, that gets taxed at the highest rate. The investor pays the least tax if you understand the quadrants. And these are the things that I teach. It's kind of the rules of the game, the basic rules of the game we're playing. And that's what I try and teach people. So you're bringing up something that people just don't know. And we don't know what we don't know, gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I like to come in as the educator and say, listen, I want to educate you. I want to teach you stuff. Now, once I talk to you and I know you got it, I don't care what you do, right? You get to do whatever you want. It's your life. But now I know that you know, and you know that I know that you know. And I think there is a turning point too, Brent, right? When people say, wow, I didn't know that. And all of a sudden it starts cycling through their head. And then the question starts saying, well, then what can I do? What can I do from where I'm at now?
Yeah, 'cause I think this relates to a lot of work Matt does when he's presenting to the people in the industry is around, and only make it so like, hey, part of what you're trying to do, Matt, is find those aha moments that cause people to realize, hey, I have to think about things differently when it's related to my financial existence or, business existence so that I can be set up for the next phase, right? Like, I think there's just too many people that don't do that.
Some of it is shame, right? They don't want to admit they need help, or they don't want to admit the situation they're in. They don't want to admit they don't understand taxes. They don't want to admit they don't understand, how money works. And so how, Ron, have you helped people overcome some of that fear or shame around not knowing the answers?
How I put it to people, honestly, Matt, is I just say, look, the wealthy have been doing things for generations that actually work. And we as working class Americans can do exactly the same thing they're doing, just on a smaller scale. And I try and tell people, the basic thing that a lot of wealthy people do is they build a team around them. And if you're a contractor, you're doing that anyway, right? You've got a team around you that's able to, bid the job, draw the job, spec it, whatever you're doing. And even you're using a tax professional. And this is what I tell people, use a good tax professional, right? You don't know what you don't know, but these people are supposed to do their job. And I say, put a tax professional on your team. I also tell people, put a financial advisor on your team. With me, it's me and my wife. So you get two for the price of one. Also get an attorney and get an estate attorney to just make sure you've got your legal docs in order. And also make sure you're taking care of you. Having that team, knowing what's going on, what I tell people is, as a working class American, if I can add just 10 to my number, just 10, it is life changing, fellas. You know what I'm saying?
And what's the key to making this work for people out there in the trades? Like, what is the key to getting them into that mindset of that long-term plan? Like, I think that's like I know in what I do, like everybody's thinking about it all the time. But I also know when I go and I talk to people and present, a lot of them are worried about the future, but they actually don't know what to do and are afraid to take that step. Matt's point of shame and fear.
Well, fear is a killer, dude, right? I mean, if you're afraid to do something for yourself, how did you get where you are with that kind of fear? And I totally get it, right? I mean, look at the leaps that I've taken, coming from, the military and then into the trades and out of the trades, still working as a reservist for another 16 years and then going to college at night while I'm working and then jumping into this financial realm. You just have to have faith in yourself. And I think that's first and foremost. And then realize that if you truly are living paycheck to paycheck, as you get older, there's gonna be an aha moment, as you just said. There really is going to be. And that aha moment, I hope, is not too late. So, I work with a lot of people, but that's why I also wrote the book, because there's so many people that I can't reach that are, they're just not around me. I feel like my people are getting really good information. I'm surrounding that team around them, and that helps alleviate those fears too, Brent, right? Because you're putting those professionals, and you got to have some trust in them too, And if there's somebody you don't like, find another one. You know, you don't have to use people you don't like. That's not what I'm ever saying. But find people that you can work with who can help advance you, who can help you take those steps to become the better you.
What would you say is your number one tip for managing your investing future?
The first thing that I would say is start. I'm a guy that kind of grew up around a church, and they say, hey, you should pay your tithing, and tithing, they want 10%, these churches, right? So I'm the kind of guy that says, you know what? How can we give to a church 10%, but we won't give to ourselves 10%? So I'm a guy that says, you know what? At least start there. If you make a buck, put a dime in something for you and that future, right? Let's just take that first step. And it's going to be amazing what you're going to be able to do if you can get yourself in the mindset. But a lot of times it's tough, especially if you are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that regular investing schedule is good. I just actually started one about a year ago. I invest in Bitcoin every month. And
Okay.
so that's a different thing for me. Yeah. But no, that's great. Ron, I think what's the name of your book? What's the name of your book again?
It's called A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American.
And people want to read your book. Is it available on Amazon? Can they buy it on Amazon, or is it
It's on Amazon. It's also on Audible. It's a real easy listen. 2 hours and 22 minutes, fellas.
Are you reading?
I did not read it. I had a really nice radio voice out of Florida. Met this guy that, he just does a really great job. I'm actually working on a revised version that I'm hoping to have out by July 4th of 2026.
When did your first book come out?
It actually came out 3 years ago.
Okay. And what changed?
Some laws have changed. Some tax laws have actually stayed the same. They were supposed to sunset at the beginning of this month. And, when I look at the tax rates, we would have jumped up 5 to 7% in the tax rates had they not stayed where they were. There's different income levels that you can make
just
contributions.
So technical stuff mostly. So that's good.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, this has been a really fantastic conversation. I know let's let our audience know where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me at peaks-integrity.com, and you can email me at ron@peaks-integrity.com. Again, my book's available on Amazon, on Audible. Reach out. If they mention the Flywheel Effect, I'm going to send them a free book too.
Awesome. That's good. I love little gives to our audience here.
Well,
Matt, anything, any last thoughts, Ron?
I love the questions that you guys brought up. I really love the idea that this was a storytelling moment, basically, where we're able to talk about what I went through, number one, to get to where I am. But I think everybody has their own story, and it's true. Everybody does have their own story. And what I really want people to realize is money's just a tool, you guys. And it's just like a hammer, If you've got a crescent wrench and you're using it as a crescent hammer, that's not the right tool for the right job, right? You got to know how to use the tool in the right manner. And we don't know what we don't know, guys. Just, ladies and gentlemen, don't be afraid to go talk to somebody who's going to help at least educate you financially and learn that money's just a tool.
Thank you very much, Ron. If you have enjoyed this episode, as always, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a 5-star review. And most importantly, if you think someone else could find it useful, please share it with them. And until next time, this is the Flywheel Effect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Flywheel Effect. Our journey through the intricate world of luxury home services continues to be fueled by your passion for excellence and innovation. If you found value in our conversations today, don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. More insights and resources. Visit us online at growwithvital.com. Until next time.